Contrary to what some might be raving about, Palworld is an open-world survival game where you build a base and explore lands unknown. Monsters of the pocket variety might be included, and some of those might share similarities with a certain popular franchise with some really loyal fans. But the real problem here is that it released on early access, and considering the developer's track record with previous projects, it is probably never going to leave it. Is it at least a good game in its current state? Depends on how saturated you are from the early access survival genre. If you are a veteran, there is no number of creators here that will help with the severe lack of polish in design, gameplay and graphics. The last time I played anything close to the genre for more than 10 minutes was when The Long Dark left early access, which that was a hot minute ago. So my current tolerance for jank is high enough that I can enjoy its clunky gameplay and the cute PAL designs.
Penguins! Oh my
I hope they don't fall over.
They're so cute! Wow! I want the penguins!
Wow, this reminds me of some Pokemon type
No,
stuff.
not Pokemon.
No, it doesn't. That
But they're
definitely
shooting,
isn't.
they're shooting at the animal!
Eevee! No! Not Eevee! No!
That's a different one!
No, it's not Gyarados!
I've been waiting to play this since I saw it during the Indie Live Expo 2021. Its premise of mashing several clashing elements was so outlandish that I couldn't help but be interested. Could it be because it was Pokemon with guns? Well, yes, but also the overt slavery angle. Plus, the Akira slide with a wolf, that certainly played a part. A slide which was also used for the update trailer for the previous game, Craftopia. Yes, they are using old stuff, a lot of it even, but again, what matters to me is that the current game, the one that I'm playing, is good, so I kept myself cautiously optimistic, a rare thing as I get older. Finally starting it up, you get a quick cutscene to explain how you're stranded on this island, and that some towers and a tree might be important for something. That's all you're getting for the main story. There are some collectible logs that you can find around the world, but after interacting with some of the NPCs, I took the executive choice of not engaging with the story any further. You might get confused at first, but they have you start closer to the first checkpoint than on the beach where the cutscene plays, which I guess was to reduce the possibility of people getting lost from the start. Like any other survival game, your first true objective will be punching trees and rocks with your bare hands until you get around creating tools. If you're thinking of playing this purely as a creature tamer, you're setting up yourself for disappointment. Solely relying on the abilities of your pals will only get you so far, or at least it will if you don't intend to abuse the game's flaws. Besides the aforementioned towers, mentioned in the starting cutscene, you are pretty much free to do whatever you want, but not really. Palworld really wants you to build a base, so the tutorial window never leaves your screen until you complete it. Even so, I roamed around in a search of a cool place where I could settle down, which had me exploring far more than the game probably wanted me for my first endeavor. Still without a good choice, and coming to terms that the game probably wanted me to build something simple in the first area, I conceded by still making that task harder on myself and started building a base on the top of the starting mountain. It had a pretty nice vista, so it was a pretty good idea, right? Absolutely wrong. The first and possibly the biggest problem of the game right now is the path traversal of the NPCs. I was eventually forced to move the first base to another, much flatter space, because in their attempt at trying to make the pals take on tasks dynamically, they get constantly stuck at the slightest bit of elevation. I tried to make a flat foundation, and even then, the smallest pals couldn't figure out where to go most of the times. Always lost in their little confusion dance, absolutely tearing it down on the dance floor of their own stupidity. Adding to this, when you go too far and come back, the way they pop back into existence has them sometimes end up somewhere they shouldn't. For how fun it is for the monkey to be stuck on the top of a tree, it took me too long to realize that he was just there, being useless. That is a big problem when you consider how big and vertical the map of Palworld is. It wants to use the Breath of the Wild formula for an environment where you can climb everything, but if you try to use that to your advantage, then the system stops working as intended. I did feel like I made a good decision, because when my base was being invaded for the first time, they couldn't reach me up the mountain. But in the end, not even my pals knew how to work with that. Speaking of Breath of the Wild... Come on, man. I'll ignore the climbing stamina gauge, because that is the new big gameplay feature that everyone will use from now on. Sort of like waist high cover, but these title drops are too much. With the subtle piano notes and everything. But then you have the temperature gauge, the random treasure chests, the collectibles to power up permanently your character, the paragliding... In contrast, I love how the first NPC you meet is talking about her surroundings like she's inside Dead by Daylight or something brutal like that. And then you turn around and there are cute creatures frolicking around in this tropical island. As for the cute creatures, they work similarly to Pokemon. Yeah, I know, shocking. After weakening the desired pal, you can throw a pal sphere to capture it. Depending on your luck, they might pop out, but you can just quickly throw another one until you get it. You can then summon it at any time.
Wow!
But besides some very general commands, you can't choose how it attacks. At least not until you ride them, then you can use them as weapons. It is important to note that there are no evolutions here, just creatures that share some similarities between them, which you have to catch separately if you want them to. And don't worry about missing out on the shiny equivalent for the pals. You will hear it and it won't shut up until you do something about it. Some specific pals also have special skills that can be used after you unlock the corresponding technology and craft the items required. Things like saddles to ride the pals are expected, but you can also make gloves to throw pals like grenades, or a harness to use them as a flamethrower, or even a rocket launcher to shoot your penguins. The fact that they went full in with this ridiculous concept is praiseworthy. Another developer might have stopped there, but they even included an option to slaughter your pals if you so desire. Blocky censorship included and everything. Even better is how you can capture humans and treat them exactly as pals, and the only problem I have with that is that the sex system isn't available during early access, but I'm sure that it will be worth the wait. While I like the majority of the pal designs, the human characters, especially the character creator, is another rough aspect of the game. The severe lack of options wouldn't feel so bad if the characters you could create would look good. But if you don't want to play as a cute girl, then you're getting hit with the biggest collection of shed faces that don't fit at all with any of the body options. The problem is not because these are the only options, but the fact that the rest of the body, especially the neck, doesn't fit any of them. If you are a YouTuber that wants to make the funny ugly character, well, you have your work cut out for you here. There is also no customization on the clothes, as they all come in a complete set that you unlock with the rest of the technology. The only real fashion you can call your own are the silly little hats you can craft, but considering the outfit possibilities, they all look completely off. The boss characters do look good, but that isn't really surprising because they're properly designed to be unique. This carries over to the rest of the graphical style, which is a default flaw of the Unreal Engine, even down to the look of the special effects. From how cartoonish the characters look, it's weird how the rest of the world is going for a more realistic approach. It's even more jarring if you watch the original trailer, where they were using a more stylized art style that fit better altogether. Well, firearms aside at least. As the story is quite light, the main metric of progression is the player level, which is advanced mostly by catching pals, with the first 10 you catch of the same species giving you a massive boost. For each new level, you unlock a new row of technology, which in turn helps evolving your base to alleviate the more repetitive tasks and make further progression even smoother. While it might be boring to catch so many copies of the same pals, especially when you are at the mercy of luck to get good attributes, I appreciate the automation of the most boring parts that are associated with the genre. After you understand how the game works, you will not need to worry about going back to the basics to gather resources like wood or stone, because our pals are doing all of that for you. Another quality of life improvement that I noticed instantly, and that so many in the survival genre miss, is how you can use the materials in the chests inside your base without the need to hold them. Add that to the quick stacking of items with a single button, and item management couldn't be easier. If you feel like things are still not fair, the game has an extensive list of difficulty options to further customize your playthroughs. The only thing I wish the game had is an option to change your starting location, otherwise the first hour of each new playthrough is looking to be pretty similar every time. There is also the question of learning the caveats of the game on how it behaves, because especially for games in early access, if I come back in a few months, it's possible that the game is now considerably different. So while I'm having fun, I'm not getting too invested in its flaws and details. For example, you can't move if you go too much over the weight limit, but you can still use your grapple gun to pull yourself where you need to go. You can also apply this trick by using a dash attack while riding a pal to still move. Is this a bug or an intended feature? I don't know. I have other examples, like riding pals negate all fall damage, so what is the point of the paragliders if they can barely carry you over horizontally? You can just summon and call back your pals without cooldown, so you can time it to avoid all the enemy attacks. The guns, which were the highlights of the early trailers, are crazy expensive, so you end up using cheaper options like the bow and arrow, which in turn is more in tune with the survival genre. Which is unfortunately a shame, because I was really expecting the firearms to play a bigger part in this game. Ignoring the blatant current flaws that could easily be fixed in the near future when you consider how much they managed to sell as of this moment, what bothers me is that the old concept of industrial Pokemon already existed with Digimon, so they could have just taken inspiration on that one too. Most of their creatures already come pre-packaged with guns, and there are a bunch of odd-looking ones that are perfectly acceptable in wanting to fuck, instead of the questionably sentient lizard. The developers expressed how they were about 60% done with the game, and that they are still going to include PvP, co-op raid battles, and trading pals, which is all multiplayer-related things that don't really interest me. I know the big appeal of this is how you can make worlds with a lot of simultaneous players, but I really don't care about playing with others in this type of scenario. Am I expecting them to work long enough on the game to truly make it good? Even after having posted a roadmap that addresses most of my complaints? No, not really. But I'm sure this is going to gather a considerable modding scene, so it seems like it's another case of fans ultimately fixing the game for the developers. God damn, if people can turn Skyrim into a Bionicle game, they better turn Palworld into a Digimon game too.